Commissioner, well, let me welcome all of you down here, and I look forward to a great weekend for wildlife. I know that's the reason the board meeting's down here, and talking with staff and going by yesterday, I think y'all will be very pleased with another year, this year 27 of this great event. So good to see you here. A couple of things very briefly. You know, we spent an awful lot of effort and time on customer engagement in the division, and just wanted to report a few items there. We touch a lot of people every week and every month. Just last month alone, I think we're over 400,000 hits to our website. We have now an email distribution database with over 800,000 of our customers in it, which allows us to communicate strategically with folks. And it's doing a lot of good, but the real big news on that front is on the social media side of things. We've got two webcams going. One is the Berry Eagle webcam, which last month we reached 20 million views on that webcam. And we've got one now at the landings that's looking at a barred owl. And the barred owl, one of the two eggs hatched just a couple of days ago, and I think there was even an article yesterday in the Washington Post about that. And it's just a great way for us to play on the interest of our customers and engage them on some of the things we do. So happy to report that. You know, John alluded to the fact that we spend an awful lot of time working with our partners. Wildlife resources don't recognize state boundaries, and we've got lots of different venues and associations and partnerships and managing those things. Probably the most value we get is our association with the Southeastern Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, which is our sister southeastern states. There's 15 states in that association. We're going to actually have representatives from Florida here at the Weekend for Wildlife. We've also got some friends from Arizona that are going to come and learn and listen about what we're doing. But within the Southeastern Association, we've got a very strong wildlife diversity committee, which is essentially the chiefs of the non-game programs. And they're going to be coming to Charlie Elliott Wildlife Center February 10th through 12th. So this will be all of the non-game leadership in the Southeast, and the principal purpose is a continued dialogue on the theme that we've been preaching here for the last couple of years, and that's proactive conservation. While we've got 65 or so federally listed species in Georgia, there's currently over 100 that are petitioned for listing. And we can't keep gopher tortoise off of the federal list without cooperation with Florida, South Carolina, Alabama. And the same holds true for a lot of the other species. So John Ambrose, Dr. Ambrose will be there working with his peers, and they've got a couple-day agenda that's really focused on strategically addressing some of those shared partnerships to the same end that we want, and that is keeping things off the list. And obviously the federal partners, Fish and Wildlife Service, is a big part of that. And I assure you, they see it as a failure when things get listed federally. So they're in our courts. We're all kind of working to shore up the science and hopefully do some proactive conservation. And to that end, the last thing I just want to mention is we also have a national association, the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, and as we sought to replace John Ambrose since he moved up to the chief of the non-game program, and we were looking for an assistant chief. We had an applicant that was currently working at the national level there, Mary Fasco. She was working with the Teaming with Wildlife Coalition and worked on federal legislation, spent a lot of time working on state wildlife action plan coordination across boundaries. She started her career actually in Washington, D.C., working with that government on their, quote, state swap as well. Brings a lot of expertise to us. I'm happy to say that Mary is our new assistant chief in the non-game conservation program, and Mary is here with us today. And so Mary, if you would stand up so folks can kind of see your face, and we appreciate having her on board. She's going to do a great job and a great compliment to John Ambrose and that team. So spend some time getting to know Mary this weekend with the rest of the staff. With that, Commissioner, that concludes my report.
Any questions? Sure. I did have a question. I saw a board, I think it was last month, about the bear population in Georgia, and that it had been badly or greatly overestimated. that or know anything about
I haven't seen that, and I would say that would be an inaccurate statement and an inaccurate portrayal of our current bear population. Truth is, our bear population is doing quite well. We've got 3 really different management units, Okefenokee Swamp, there around Middle Georgia, and then the mountains, and they're all doing well. We're hunting all of them. We're matter of fact, may actually bring some expanded opportunities for hunting in that Appalachian.
It seems like it was surprising. I'll see if I can find out.
Well, that's interesting. I will say too, Florida banned bear hunting several years ago, and we actually have a shared population there. And I would say our Okefenokee population, our hunters have benefited from Florida's lack of hunting. But they had a commission meeting this week, and they are talking about reinstituting a bear hunting season there. They've had some very unfortunate fatalities, bear attacks, and they've got lots of bears. They euthanized one individual bear just north of Orlando a few weeks ago, weighed 740 pounds. He's eating a lot of donuts and a lot of trash cans. So anyway, our bear population is sound, very healthy, and we're doing good. So
thank you, Commissioner, and echo Dan's welcome to the Brunswick Golden Isles area. This morning, I'd like to share with you some video footage for a couple of purposes. One is to give you an idea of what some of our underwater resources look like offshore, and secondly, give you an idea of what we're going to be doing in terms of lifting some footage related to our offshore artificial reef project back to the Georgia Outdoor Map, something we've been working with the IT group on. Just a little background, we started putting man-made materials offshore in the 70s. Thanks to the German Navy, we actually put some stuff out there in the 1940s too. And we actually used a couple of those sites to build on, and makes for some interesting diving. You see some World War II era wrecks that are just in Georgia. But we've done this for 2 purposes. One is to increase diving and fishing opportunities, and the other is to increase biodiversity in the ocean. And if you've never been able to dive offshore Georgia, it doesn't look anything like Florida Keys and a lot of what you see on television. The best way I can describe what the seafloor looks like off of most of the Georgia coast is when you walk out on the beach, that's what it looks like out there until you get to about 40 miles offshore. So it's a vast expanse of sand and mud mixture that supports certain kinds of life, but when you put hard structures out there, the diversity of that life really increases. So with that, we're launching into the video here. This was prepared by January Murray, our artificial reef project supervisor. And I'll just give you a little description. This first is Navy Tower R5. This is located about 34 miles east of Cumberland. The Navy built 8 of these towers during the 80s as part of an aircraft training infrastructure that have been subsequently decommissioned, and we're working with the Department of Defense to have those towers deployed as artificial reef sites. What you see here, these are very similar to what oil and gas production platforms look like in the Gulf. So you're sort of looking up through it. It's been out there for almost 40 years, so you've got some interesting benefit communities requested on the legs. Originally, they were contemplating actually removing them. They're taking them completely out of the environment, and we jumped on that and made a case for let's figure out a way to leave them there. But we're kind of right now at the point of how do we work out the details. We've got each area around these towers as a artificial reef site under Georgia's management, and now we're just down to the details of how are we going to be deployed. Obviously, very targeted fishing sites. That's about 72 feet. This is what happened when the commissioner was learning how to drive tanks. Now, this is actually part of something that we were involved in back in, let's see, this was back in the 80s, actually back in the early 90s, called REFEX, and it was a project whereby the military was getting rid of surplus equipment. And so they made a lot of this equipment available to states to use as fish habitat. And so it was M60 main battle tanks, which is what these are, also some armored personnel carriers. They did all the hard work. They did the prep, they removed the engines, deployed at the sites that we targeted. So we were very curious about how these would perform out in the marine environment. We were worried about settling and that sort of thing. But you can see here, this is about 10 years after the fact, and you can see it's still very much intact and upright and providing some interesting habitat. We noticed, I don't know where it is, that the hatch was well open. We try to make these things not an attractive nuisance for folks to go in and get stuck if they're down diving, so we try to prevent that from happening as much as we can. But we've got several dozen of these deployed at various locations around the Georgia coast, and they make really good habitat. Again, these are in 60 to 70 feet of water. CCA-JL, this is 22 miles east of St. Catharines, about 65 feet. Concrete culvert pipe, and you can get it, that's great material. It very much mimics the natural limestone outcroppings that are found scattered farther offshore. Very durable. As you can see here, this was put out in 2001. This was filmed in 2013, so it's about 12 years worth of growth. Again, it's remained very well intact. Point out the gray triggerfish there. Gray triggerfish are actually nesters, unlike a lot of the fish we deal with in the ocean that are open water spawners. They're actually nesters. And you can favor this kind of habitat because it makes great nesting as well as foraging habitat. They're very territorial oftentimes. When you dive, they get right up in your face and don't like you being in proximity to their nests. A lot of other different species. You know, we're in a kind of a transition zone between the tropics and the temperate zone. So many cars, thanks to our partnership with the New York Transit Authority, we put out over 200 subway cars in coastal Georgia. These are the Brightliners. We also put out some Redbird cars back in the early 2000s. These Brightliner were put down between 2008 and 2010. Interestingly, some of them have collapsed. The ends have remained intact, but the roof and the sides have sort of collapsed down. But even when they're collapsed down, you still make great fish habitat. We had a 2-for-1 deal, so we paid for 2 barge loads, and they would give us the 3rd barge load for free. They literally came all the way down here from Brooklyn, New York. They had a decommissioning yard. This is what a natural live well looks like. This is at J Reef, which is actually 65 feet of water, about 18 miles east of St. Catharines. This is what a limestone outcropping looks like. And you can see that what we're creating through man-made processes very much looks like what you see out there natural. There's not a lot of this out there until you get well offshore. They're typically in a linear configuration. Sometimes they're 6 or 7 feet off the seafloor. Sometimes they're only a couple of feet. Sometimes they're just scattered. Low outcroppings here that have dense communities. These are very subject to being sanded over. There's a lot of sand movement out there on the shelf. Same reef. This is a vessel that was put out in 1980, 100 foot by 24 foot. Real whole vessel in Elmira. You can see that vessels make very different. They're very high, provide a lot of relief. People that fish know that they attract a lot of barracudas, a lot of hammerjacks, things like that. Very durable, and the Elmira is one of 78 vessels that we have deployed since the 1970s. And these are everything from 25-foot steel hull sailboats all the way up to 440-foot long Liberty ships. We have 2 of those, both of which were actually built in coastal Georgia during World War II. Found their way to the Pacific and came all the way back, and we brought right back where they started from and put them down and fish habitat. Vessels make interesting dives, and you can get inside of them, assuming that you're using good, say, diving practices. Get inside and get an opportunity to see a lot of diversity with some structure, and it makes an interesting dive for folks that like to do kind of wreck/technical dives. Vertical vessels get a lot of vertical surface as opposed to some of the other materials. Pretty much stay intact. We have had a couple of them break up due to storm damage. One of our Liberty ships actually broke in 2, so now the bow and the stern section are actually separated. There's a lot of bait fish around that attract striking fish like mackerel and sailfish. You never get those on the camera, but they're always darting neck and back. And poultry transport cages, thanks to a partnership with First Class and Poultry and more recently with Fieldale Farms, some of you may remember the fellow that's associated with Fieldale Farms. I think you might have a little something to do with that. What you see here is we took an old barge that we had been using for several years and frankly couldn't keep it up anymore, loaded it with about 50 of these poultry transport cages, took it out to DRH Reef, which is 15 miles east of Little St. Simons, about 55 feet. And on the barge, when the barge went down, it tipped over, so these cages were slid off and formed this big mass you see here. And we didn't know exactly how these would perform out in the marine environment, but these were put down in 2006. And this was filmed 7 years later, so they remain very well intact. They provide a lot of complexity, a lot of places for fish to get inside of them and seek shelter and forage. They're probably a little frustrating for people that fish, based on the observation of books and sailors and that kind of thing. We typically use a term called FAM, a fish aggregating device, but in the case of these are probably fisherman aggravating devices. They do work quite well. And then lastly, we've got pallet balls. These are prefabricated concrete reef units. So these are actually specifically made to create fish habitat offshore. Again, being made of concrete, their chemistry very much looks like the limestone midges that are out there. We can order these. If you've got the money available, you can order them. The company will come deliver whatever number you purchase to your designated site. We always go out there every time they deploy. We make sure that they are put in the right places. We have very strict requirements on keeping it within the boundaries of our approved reef area. We had an opportunity on this deployment. They actually went down as soon as they hit the bottom, and the barge was gone. This beauty out here. They don't always land upright, but that's not really necessary. This barracuda found immediately after they hit the bottom. So they do create immediate fish attraction that only gets better over time. So you see here almost a month, a year later, now you can see what's going on. They're beginning to be encrusted with a variety of sessile marine life. Again, there's our sugarfish. As I mentioned earlier, we're in that kind of transition zone between the temperate and the tropics. So in the summertime here, you see a mixture of temperate species like black sea bass. You also see a lot of the fish that you would see in the Florida Keys, queen angelfish, French angelfish, a lot of very colorful fish. We're using natural light here, so you can't really get the benefit of color. If you're using artificial light, you see a lot more colorful neon fish here. These are great units. They hold up real well. They're also very popular seagulls. It's very rare to die when they feel with pallet balls and not see at least one turtle sort of dashed up in the crevices taking a nap. Just kind of relaxing down there.
City clubs all over the state are always looking for speakers. This presentation here would be fantastic, and it also might give them something they may raise money for to help. They're going to have their own reef, the Rotary Club of Macon, Georgia's reef off the coast. If that presentation was made during one of their meetings, it's just a thought.
Thanks, Bud.